Please welcome to the stage producer Simone Perot and writer and director Jennifer Fox.
Thank you so much. It's really moving. I just actually flew in from South Africa last night where we were showing The Tale and at Durban Film Festival and around the country, and I was just so moved because it's working cross-culturally as well as here, so that's just something to share. We can all take a deep breath. So I know, and our whole team knows, that the film can be difficult and can bring up a lot of emotion. And because of that, we always like to make sure that we have therapists or counselors in the room. And there are two in the audience. Would you stand up over here? So if anyone feels the need to talk or would like information as a parent or as a survivor, please find these two lovely people outside afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. So now is the time for our question and answer. I see that hand already. As always, you guys will ask the questions, and Simone and Jennifer will give the answers. I know everyone was deeply affected by this, but there's probably going to be a lot of questions, so let's try to keep it to questions as much as possible. As always, you can also tweet your questions to hashtag SBFF. Yes, sir, you were the first one.
Jennifer, thank you for the courage to bring this story to life and to have the guts to show the movie. That being said, I want to ask you a question about the story itself. Did you guys ever get the guy?
So the question is, did you ever get the guy?
Well, the film is based on real life, so the object of the film wasn't to get him. We were way past the statute of limitation laws. As you know, in America, every state has different statute of limitation laws. I'm from Pennsylvania. I never used the word sexual abuse until I was 45. And the statute of limitation laws ran out in Pennsylvania for me when I was 30. So there is no way to prosecute him. And in fact, he's in his late 80s now. However, the whole goal of the film was actually to do more than that, which was to use the story to change the conversation and hopefully help prevent and then also help survivors speak. So I hope we did much more than get the guy. I hope we changed the world. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, right there. She's very appreciative for bringing this to light. How hard was this for you? How hard was this film for you to make?
You know, I'm 58 years old. I've been making films since I was 20. So, and I've obviously been writing stories long before The Tale. So my life is really about using storytelling and basically making sense of chaos through art. And I would say that the first time I used the word sexual abuse, as I mentioned, I was 45. I was making a 6-hour piece called Flying Confessions of a Free Woman, which was about female life around the world. And I met so many women that seemed to have this incredible story that sounded just like my relationship. from when I was 13, and it was, I guess, the kismic moment that suddenly I couldn't call it a relationship anymore. The moment I realized it was sexual abuse was just as quick. I realized now I'm ready to make a film about this. And frankly, I feel it's quite a privilege as an artist to be able to use my path to investigate what happened and how and why it happened and why I had constructed this memory to survive, and to really look at how my mind had used the story. So for me, I wouldn't say it was hard as much as it was really exciting and really interesting to say, what happened here? It took me about 5 years to write this script, so it was a long journey, and about another 5 years to produce it. When I was writing the script, I actually brought Simone on to talk about impact and outreach. And that's one of our big efforts with the film, is not just to make a film that will move audiences, but make a film that will impact audiences. And maybe that's a moment to bring you into the conversation.
You know, as Jennifer said, for someone like me that actually comes from Stony Brook, actually, my alma mater. So I feel very grateful. Thank you, Alan, and my colleagues, Bob and Magdalene, for being here for the MFA in Film program that we have in Southampton. But I had a minor degree in global studies and theater. And this is kind of where I really had the idea that art can have the opportunity to help us think about things in a different way, and really hard social issues. And when Jennifer and I met, you know, a true artist that understands that storytelling can move a needle and can ask us to do things that we may not want to think about or look at, and then find some solutions for social change. It's been an honor and privilege. So what we did with the tale very early on was to have that notion that her story on film could look at how does a young girl get involved in this situation, and how do the people around her have that impact as well, and how does she process that? And so we've been really creating this campaign, a global campaign now, as we are going around the world, where the film can be used for discussion in both clinical settings, university settings, psychological settings, and public policy settings. Again, all with that notion of how do you take the film and the story into this solution-based opportunity for our issue of child sexual abuse.
Thank you. I think there was another, yes ma'am, right there. Excellent question. Were there other women that came forward regarding this coach?
You know, the coach, the real Bill, his identity is quite hidden for reasons. While my name obviously is kept the same, in order really to be able to protect that the film wouldn't be questioned as true, everybody else's name is changed, and the sport that he's known for is not running. And the way I knew him was in such a small environment. It wasn't connected to a school. So it's quite hard to track him or track who he is. So the answer is no. There have been a couple people who recognize Mrs. G, who has since died. Luckily, pushed by my mother, I met her many times before she died in order to write the script. I also spoke to Bill and then eventually met him. The other thing is that what's true, that I did reach out to a private detective, and he actually discouraged me from trying to talk to other women because he was afraid if I did, you never know who will alert the real Bill, and then Bill would never meet me. So that hasn't happened yet. It very well could happen. I wouldn't be uncomfortable perhaps outing him once he dies, but up until that point, in all cases of sexual abuse, the biggest problem is that there's no witnesses. So, if Bill really thought this was about him, he could stop the distribution just by starting a lawsuit. And that was the thing that I never wanted to happen.
So I actually had a question, not from Twitter, it was actually texted to me, but it's a good question. What has been the impact on your family, specifically your parents?
Oh, great. Well, I hope it's clear, or maybe it's not, but this film is partially based on transcript. So the journey that Laura Dern goes on as Jennifer is a journey I really did go on, and Ellen Burstyn is based on transcripts with my mother. Even though, of course, we don't look at all like them, but anyway. So my mom was a real catalyst for me making the film, which is really phenomenal. And she really pushed me, in lieu of killing Bill, she wanted me to make a film about him. And basically use it to change the world. And so my mom, all the journey is, she really did say, are you wearing a wire? And she really did go through a lot of what you see on film. She read the script as it was being written. She recently, if you go to our website, thetalemovie.com, there's lots of resources on all fronts. There's also hotlines, but there's also a really beautiful public event with my mother and I in Philadelphia where she's speaking. My mom is really proud of the film. And my brothers, 3 of my brothers were with us at Sundance. My nephews and nieces were with us at Sundance. And I think they're really proud, frankly.
That's great. That's great. Another question.
My dad would be proud, but he's not so well right now, so, yeah.
Another question. Yes, ma'am.
Why don't children tell?
The question, the very easy question to answer is why don't children tell? Sorry.
Well, frankly, I just have to, full disclaimer, I am not a psychologist, I'm just a filmmaker. And I only know my own experience, and child sexual abuse comes in many varieties and is as diverse as there are people. It was very interesting showing this film in South Africa because we did a lot of panels to kind of knit it into the community. And one of the panels was with a representative from a group called, I think it's called Love Life. And they deal a lot with child sexual abuse. And one of the things that the counselor was saying was so true about this film is that I always say a child like myself can love his or her abuser. And I loved Bill. Not sexually, I loved him as an adult. I loved Mrs. G. And part of the complication is that at the time, I would never have wanted to hurt him. And one of the things that this psychologist said was that that's really common, that a child doesn't want to prosecute. And that happens a lot, and it's one of the complications of trying to stop a predator and not hurt the child can happen. So it's just one of the many things that as adults we have to be sensitive to. I know for me that if I had been forced to tell or forced to prosecute at 13, I might have ended up in an institution. Because being made into a victim by adults, I feel now as an adult would have killed me more than the abuse itself. So what does that mean? It's a little hard to unpack, but it was very important for my sanity to think that I was the hero and that I was actually making choices. And that to really face that I was manipulated and coerced would have somehow destroyed my sense of agency, even if it's true. And that's what I held on to survive and, in fact, go on and thrive in some way. That's not to say that there wasn't damage. So again, I don't want to say that my story is everyone's story, but it is one story, and it is a story that does happen. It's also why a lot of times people don't actually talk about sexual abuse until middle age, as I did. I didn't even use the word till I was 45. So we can take something from this. So it's one of the goals of this film is to show the complexity and nuance that occurs and the messiness of it all. And as adults, we need to be very sensitive when we get in there with our big boots with children. If something is happening, we need to be very sensitive how we disengage the child from the event, how we talk to them, how we prosecute, etc. Again, that's anecdotal. I'm not a therapist. And there are 2 therapists in the room. If you want to ask them afterwards, I'm sure they'll have many thoughts than I do. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, we have time for a few more questions. I'm going to go to this side of the room now. Yes, ma'am. So the question is, were you able to maintain the relationship that you had at that time?
Yeah, we're together now almost 17 years. And we don't wear rings, but we got married in 2013, so whatever, 5 years ago. And he is not Afro-American, he happens to be Swiss. So in fact, Common's role was to be played by a German actor who fell out, and we had trouble recasting, and luckily Laura Dern, who is very committed to the film, actually suggested Common because they shared an acting coach. And I met him and really loved him. I really think that what's so beautiful about that role is it's really the good man and shows that men can play a very positive role in healing and in caretaking as opposed to someone like Bill.
I want to give a chance to someone in the back. How about all the way back there? Yep, you're the one.
Oh,
we got the camera question.
Did we shoot on digital, on film? It's digital. Yeah.
Let's take one more question. Yes, sir. Wait. Hey, I'm the one with the microphone. I get to choose. But, okay, you. Interesting question. So the question was if Mrs. G had actually done what you wanted her to do, which was, I think, basically tell you, yes, this happened, and yes, I made this happen. Or
no, I actually think she's asking if back then,
or at
if
the time,
Mrs. G had stopped it. It's a really hard question to answer because she basically gave me to him. And I don't even know if she understood what she was, I mean, it's so complicated. What I do want to just turn it around and say is that it's really important to me that people realize, as you see, Jenny was, and I rediscovered that children do have a voice and they're not stupid, and they You know, they have really clear thoughts and feelings, but what they don't have is experience. And the difference between me as a child and me as an adult is 2 seconds when I re-met Bill, I saw, if nothing else, this man was a complete womanizer. And the child me couldn't see any of that because I was too young. And that's why we need adult protection and why we need adults really need to be watching very carefully for children. I also want to say that it's really important to me that we don't erase Jenny's narrative and that the truth is everything. The truth is I did love him, and the truth is he did abuse me. And that as adults, I think somehow we have to hold that gray area and that complexity while still being able to say that this is bad and horrific. And the child me preferenced one side of the narrative. It's not that I made it up. And didn't preference the horrible side, if that makes any sense. And now as an adult, I just think I can re-see it in a more whole way. I hope that makes sense. I really don't believe in erasing narratives. I believe that all the narratives are true. And I don't want to say, now that I'm an adult, what the child me thought was wrong. It just was only a piece of the story. I hope that makes sense. That's my reality.
Thank you. We are out of time, actually. We have another movie.
One quick, because I have to wear my producer hat for a minute.
Okay.
So the film has had the honor, we are now nominated for 2 Emmy awards, Best Film and Best Actress. But what that really says, that we're saying, what we're finding is that the film is really hitting our culture. And so we ask that, you know, visit our website. If you want more information, please come talk with us. We're going to be here for a few more minutes outside. But these types of films really need community and audience support. So we really appreciate you all being here. So thank you.
Simone Perot, Jennifer Fox. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to tell them about HBO, that they can see it streaming to spread the word?
I think,
Yeah, just say it again.
and it's on HBO. You can stream it. So please share and tell your friends and family.